House is looking to pass a bill through Congressional Chambers that makes changes to our electoral process. Yesterday, the House approved a proposed law known as the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, or SAVE for short. The law would require individuals registering to vote to provide proof of citizenship to participate in federal elections. Voting laws vary by state, with some states like Georgia and Wisconsin requiring photo ID, others such as Pennsylvania and New Mexico requiring no documentation at all. During House floor discussions, Louisiana native and House Speaker Mike Johnson urged his fellow colleagues to pass the bill, saying it was, quote, one of the most important votes that chambers of this chamber will ever take in their entire careers, end quote. And Louisiana Rep and current House Majority Leader Steve Scalise echoed similar thoughts.
Why not have a safeguard to ensure that only American citizens vote in America's elections? And so that's what this important bill is going to do that Chip Roy is bringing forward. A lot of work went into this by a lot of people to make sure that this bill achieves that purpose, that we protect the integrity of the vote.
And Louisiana is no stranger to laws like this one. According to a local registrar of voters in Rapides, they think this law is going to be very proactive.
We do it in Louisiana. We passed it in 2022 with 73% of the vote. It's a positive impact on the community, even though Louisiana has passed this statewide in 2022.
Only about 48% of U.S. citizens have a passport, according to State Department data. Driver's licenses and tribal ID cards typically do not prove a person's citizenship, and they cannot be used to register under the SAVE Act.